Welcome back to the channel. William is helping me introduce today. Today's video is going to be about a question that I've gotten a lot recently, which is, can you review some knives that are good for people with smaller hands? So I have extra large size hands. So I had my sister come and help me. She's going to be the other voice in the video today. She has very small hands. She's about 100 pounds soaking wet. So today we're going to go over a bunch of knives in my collection and see what is good for people with small hands versus large hands. So as the intro talked about, we're talking about knives that have good fit in small hands today. So this is my extra large hand. This is my sister. She's here helping me out today. She has a very small hand. So that's the difference in hand size. We'll show you kind of in my hand and in her hand, and we'll kind of talk about it. So this is a Cold Steel Tough Light. This is what it looks like in my hand. It pretty much disappears. I'll give it to you. And that's what it looks like in a very small hand.
And you would think it would fit nicely, but like my hands are so small that 2 fingers end up in this grip bit, and it's actually a bit uncomfortable. It's not terrible, but it is kind of awkward because my fingers end up hitting on the outside of that.
What if you slide down off of the finger choil? How's that? Is that any better?
That is a bit better. It just feels awkwardly length though, because it's
kind of sits far away.
It sits far away. It's not bad. It would just take a bit more wrist strength.
Okay. So moving on, this is a Rake P108, kind of a long skinny knife. This actually does fit pretty good in a large hand. So let's hand that over to you.
Okay. It is long, but it doesn't feel uncomfortable. It's a little bit on the thick side, but it's genuinely not bad. Like I can reach my fingers around it without any real trouble.
Okay. I will say this is
feels large, but not uncomfortable.
Okay. This is a custom engraving that I did at the Smoky Mountain Knife Works because this is a very slippery knife if you don't have anything engraved on it.
I will say that I do like the fact that it has the little indent on the back side. It allows me to hold on to it a little bit better than most knives that size.
All right. This is a Kaiser Clutch. This one's in carbon fiber. This one fits decently in my hand too. It's just really not too small, but it feels small for my hand.
Okay. Again, feels large for me, but is not uncomfortable at all. That pocket clip actually, the fact that it's smoothed and rounded and not very aggressive pocket clip makes it easier to hold on to than most. Again, feels a little bit large, but it's very functional to use.
All right. And this is a classic. This is the good old Benchmade 940, although this one's been highly modified. Well known for having a classic handle shape. For me, personally, this handle feels a little too small. I would prefer something a little bit meatier, but again, I have large hands.
This one is a decent feel. It's the carbon fiber is also nice just because it's light. The pocket clip, the way it hits my hand is not terribly comfortable, but it's just a fairly basic. The sharper edges do catch the inside of my hand, but it's a basic. Like it's not super comfortable, but it's also again just very functional.
Yeah, again, these are kind of expensive Benchmades, and I feel like they're not nearly as good as everybody else in the world seems to think these knives are.
They wouldn't have been my pick out of the first lineup, honestly.
This is a Kaiser Splinter. I like this because it's super fancy and it's very lightweight to put in dress slacks, but that handle has always been a bit too small for me. I really have to like crunch my hand down as hard as I can just to get my finger to contact this. So I'm wondering how it is for you.
For me, it's much thinner than the others, which is nice. I can wrap more of my hand around it. It is more comfortable. It fits nicely. The sharper edges on the inside catch the inside of my fingers just a little bit, but it is I can get a really good handle on this knife in ways I can't in the other ones.
All right, so those were kind of ones that she thought was okay. Next, we're going to do some ones that she actually liked better, and some of them are actually gigantic. So that's kind of interesting. Here is a SOG Terminus. Again, this one's been modded. Again, I got rid of this knife because the blade was too small for me. My wife adopted this one.
This one feels very sturdy. It feels very functional. It feels less bulky, if that makes sense. Like I feel like I can get a good angle on this to use it. It feels like it would be more, the leverage would be better because it fits my hand a little bit nicer. You can see my fingers, it's a little thick, but my fingers do wrap around it relatively nicely.
Again, I recommend the S35VN version of this knife, not the D2 version. It just rusts too quickly. This is one of my favorites. Actually, this is a Hogue Deca. This is one's in MagnaCut with some custom scales, but they're all decent knives. Again, I like these better than the bug outs because it's a sturdier build and they have better steel at a cheaper price with similar materials. This is just, it's just okay for my hand. I like the depth to it. But it's about, this for me is about as small of a knife as I like to go for carry. You liked this one, I think.
This one I did like. It's funny because as small as it goes for him, it's actually still a bit large for me. But it still feels relatively comfortable. The pocket clip does come up kind of in the middle of my hand, hitting a bone. So for my particular hand, it's not ideal, but it is it just feels very sturdy and very, like you see how my hand wraps pretty much all the way around it. It does give me a good grip.
Yeah, it's got a good handle width to handle
Yes.
height ratio, so it doesn't want to spin in your hand. All right, so these ones are kind of interesting because next we have a couple very large knives that actually fit pretty well in her small hands. The best one that she liked, this is a 0 tolerance 452 carbon fiber. And you can see even in my hand, that's huge, right? It's a big knife. I think that it's a good sized knife for me, but I was really shocked that her hands actually fit it.
My hand, again, I fit more in the middle. You see how but it doesn't feel uncomfortable. Like this, surprisingly, just, it feels like a good, you just want to take it to something and
Chop.
like it's going to, it lasts. This part, I can put my thumb on the top and it has just enough of an indent where my thumb hits that it's really comfortable. It feels like I get a very good pressure on it to use it. It does, again, because it's wider at the bottom, there is a little bit of extra pressure on the bottom part here, but my hand does fit around it much better than I would have expected for a knife that size.
All right, and this is another classic. This is a Cold Steel 4-inch Ti-Lite. I have another video about these. I don't necessarily like the more expensive ones. I think this knife makes more sense as a less expensive knife. But because of this full backspacer, they tend to be very comfortable in the hand. I can really grip that even with my large hands. Here is it for you.
This one, it's funny because I do not like this. For me, that one little indent, my finger almost fits in it and it's kind of awkward and uncomfortable. But the knife itself, you see how it wraps around. It's a good shanking knife for the way it feels.
Very stabby.
But to hold it up close is uncomfortable, mostly because of that little indent.
So for you, it's comfortable further back.
It's comfortable further back. But again, it's a little bit awkward just because of the length. So not my favorite, but it's remarkably decent for how.
Yeah. So if you're a little girl and you want to carry a big knife, yeah, that one. All right. So this is the 0 tolerance 450. This is the smaller version of this one. This, I think you said, was one of your favorites.
This is one of my favorites, yeah.
This, for me, my finger, I get 3 fingers in where they're supposed to go, and my little finger falls outside of that range. It's okay, but this is not a super comfortable knife for me. It's just a little too small. You really liked this one.
This one is one of my favorites. My hand wraps around it. You can see it meets the other part of my hand nicely. It has a good place for my thumb.
Yeah. And you actually get all 4 fingers in.
I can get all 4 fingers
in
and you can see where it really perfectly fits to where my hand goes on the outside. Yeah, this one just feels very comfortable. It feels very functional. It feels very much like I would want to use this every day.
Yeah. By the way, they just released some of these in MagnaCut, so get this print run while you can.
Nice.
What do we have here? This is an Artisan Cutlery. I forget which one this is. I'll put the text up on the screen so you can see. This is one of their more common ones. Again, this is way too small for me. It's just not comfortable. Again, I think it was one of your favorites.
Yeah, this one is also. It fits my hand nicely. It feels it feels like it fits. The other, some of them were large, but they still felt relatively comfortable. And this one just feels like it belongs. I'm not a huge fan of the double way the bottom
sticking out.
The liner sticks out, just because it gives you a little more pressure, as to ones like, where did it go? This one where it has the indent that it gives it a smoother edge. But this does fit very well, and it's slightly less comfortable, but it's not uncomfortable for me.
All right, before we do your two favorites, let's do a couple fixed blades, because you like this. This is a Bradford Guardian 3.2. I have gone on this channel about how terrible this handle is for me. It's awful, but you liked it.
I did like it. The indent it's unusual, but it feels like I can get a good grip on it. Like these 3 fingers, you can see even on me how the line on my hand goes in, but because my fingers are small, my hand can go in there and get a decent grip on it. It feels different than other knives. It's not your standard grip. If you want something that fills out your hand, this is not going to be your favorite knife, but for something that I can get an angled grip on.
I'll get that out. All right. One more fixed blade, and then we'll do your two favorites. This is the Peacemaker 3. It works okay in my hand. It's a little small. Go ahead and check it for your hand.
Again, it's a larger knife, but it feels comfortable. Like you can see how my hand doesn't meet the end at all, but because of the way it sits up close, it still feels relatively comfortable. It is large, it feels large, but it's not so bulky that I wouldn't choose to use it.
Yeah, it is designed to be thin because they're boot knives. All right, so your two favorites were these two. This one is a CRKT Stylus. Again, ridiculously tiny in my hand. I would never carry a knife like this just because it's not comfortable.
But yeah, it fits great. I like that it's lightweight. I like that it feels very, let's say flexible is not the right word, but
versatile.
Versatile. It feels versatile. It feels like I could use this comfortably for a lot of things. And like, again, being a small person as well as having small hands, it would fit in my clothing without feeling super bulky. This one is genuinely, it's got a good grip. It's got a good size. It's lightweight, but it doesn't feel like it's flimsy by any means. Compared to the others, it would feel more flimsy, but like it's not a flimsy knife.
Yeah, it definitely has a smaller pivot, so it's not designed for hard use, but it is nice to carry if you want to. So this is actually a custom paring knife that I made. Occasionally I sell these on Etsy, Dr. Stabby custom knives. I made it for myself because it fits my hand well. I was surprised that you liked this.
I saw it in the kitchen and I was like, what is this knife? This is like seriously the most comfortable knife for kitchen use, for paring and things. I like that even though it has the longer handle, you'd think that wouldn't be nice, but I can slide my hand back to use it more as a fillet knife almost, as well as the paring knife aspect. It's super comfortable. I didn't know he made it, and I came into the living room like, what is this knife? It's genuinely my favorite. Like I would use this on a daily basis.
This is my counter knife. It lives on the counter. I designed it for coring apples because you need a lot of leverage on a short blade, so you don't stab it all the way through. So that's what it's designed for. Yeah, really fun. I didn't intend to make more of these, but I might end up making some more.
I want one.
All right, so that is lots of knives for small hands. If you are a small person, hopefully that is helpful, and have a nice day.